Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and happy annual calendar day. That's right, the one day per year you get to adjust your annual calendar complication, and to celebrate we have a clash of titans. Patek Philippe, the company that invented the annual calendar in 1996, and Omega, a company that helped to democratize the annual calendar, both full bracelet and full gold. This pair is giving me a homesick feeling from Miami Beach, Florida. I can't imagine why. Crank up the Grand Theft Auto 6 soundtrack. Omega versus Patek Philippe annuals starts now. Okay, we're going to jump with the Omega because in a lot of ways the Omega is the less familiar of the two watches, despite hailing from a more familiar brand. The original Hour Vision launched in 2007. It was the launch platform for the caliber 8500 family of in-house purpose-built coaxials. The next year, Baselworld 2008 witnessed the arrival of the watch you see here, the Ville Hour Vision annual calendar. Now, it's not a large watch, though next to the Patek Philippe, it's like docking the Mauritania next to the Queen Mary. 41 millimeters in diameter, it is a full-sized watch with full-sized presence, and it makes the most of its 41 millimeter diameter, 14.2 millimeters thick. It's not objectively thick, though it's certainly not as svelte as the Patek. 49.4 millimeters lug-to-lug means I can actually recommend this bomber for a wrist as small as 14.5 centimeters circumference. The spacing between the lugs is 20 millimeters, but academic, you're not going to replace this bracelet. The Hour Vision always had Art Deco overtones. It was not subtle. The strakes, the clash of rectilinear and curvaceous aspects, the combination of a machine ethic and a vaguely retro-inflected character pervades the dial, the case, and yes, the bracelet. Looking like the top of the Chrysler Building on your wrist, it is remarkably complex and beautifully made, substantial. One of the virtues of the Omega is that it does not short you the gold. For less money, you get more of it. And it has a twin trigger deployment that is sequential, so you do need to close one side before the other. But how much do you love that attention to detail with a white gold Omega logo inset atop the red gold clasp? Now, working our way back, you can see that this is an appropriate sports watch bracelet, though not explicitly billed as such. It does release a great deal of heat, sweat, moisture, and grit from the wrist, while it has the channels to avoid pinching skin or pulling hair. One of the breakthrough developments of the original Hour Vision of 2007 was the use of Sapphire Viewports in the flank of the case to show off a movement of which Omega was justifiably proud. You can see they remain fairly distinctive even today in the era of sapphire cases. This was a trendsetter in that regard. You'll also note that the case is complex. There's a little bit of an inward inflection, concave profile to the lugs themselves. They have a vertical satin finish on their flank, a very subtle bevel between the hoods and the flanks, a squared off end and polished hoods. The bezel is minimalist, and you can see it's broken by the lugs themselves, which appear to hold the bezel of the watch almost like a set gem in a ring. Turn it to the dial side. This is where the watch kicks into high gear, more of that Art Deco inflection. You can see the rhodium-plated guidron raised above the dial that run from one side of the calendar complication all the way around and unify at the other side. Rose gold indices, rose gold hands, blued counterweighted needle-style seconds hand, and a opaline silver frosted metallic. It's not a sunburst. It is very dramatic. Now, the watch features a quick set for both the month and the date in an annual calendar, and if you're new to annual calendars, they need be adjusted only once per year during the jump from February to March. Turn it all over, the caliber is impressive. Now, this is the 8611. The standard annual is the 8601. The 8611 features a solid 18-karat rose gold rotor and an 18-karat rose gold balance bridge. You can see there's a good looking movement in here. It is not hand finished, but it is thoughtfully designed. 60-hour power reserve, coaxial chronometer, all of this water resistant down to 100 meters, and the 2008 Hour Vision annual calendar was the first Omega to gain the SI-14 hairspring in the 8500 caliber family, so it was a breakthrough watch in many respects. Now jump into the Patek Philippe. The Patek is going to be more comfortable for traditionalists. First, we're talking about a watch that is considerably smaller on the wrist. 39 millimeters, but it appears even more compact, especially alongside the Brobdingnagian Omega. As you can see, a timepiece that is 39 millimeters, but only 11.3 thick. It is roughly 3 millimeters thinner than the Omega, and it looks even slimmer because of the stacked bezel atop the case. It's pared back and stepped back. 46.9 millimeters lug-to-lug, that's lug-to-lug. If you include the end links of the bracelet. It's still 48.9, so narrower across the wrist than the Omega, 20mm lug spacing. This is an easy watch to wear, not just on a smaller wrist, but also under a cuff. It's a more natural match as a dress watch, and while not as tough as the Omega physically or internally, it is a watch that you can wear almost all the time if you're comfortable with full gold. Now, the timepiece sells new for $63,960, so it does lead the Omega by quite a margin, and most of the difference, although some admittedly, is tied up in the name and the name premium that the watch carries, but most of the difference in value is tied up inside the watch, where the caliber 324 base with an annual calendar, a power reserve, a go, no-go capability, all of this is really the basis for the watch's prices. Fully 1/3 the price of a watch like this is going to be tied up in hand finishing. You can see the mirrored anglage on the edge of every bridge, perfectly aligned, abrasive wheel-laid Côte de Genève, linear across the bridges, circular across the rotor. There's a micro perlage in a spiral fashion across the center of the rotor, and you can see there's a macro perlage, larger engine turning on the base plate. All screw heads are black polished with their slots as well as their circumference chamfered, and this being a pre-mid-2009 Patek Philippe, it bears the Ponceau de Genève. These were built like this between 2005 and roughly June of 2009. So that's the period when you'll see the traditional Geneva seal. The watch is beautifully executed with a lacquered dial. I lied, this watch does not have a 24-hour danger zone indicator, but it has everything else. A gloss lacquer base, it's a cream. It's neither white nor silver, it's off-white and perfectly cued to complement the yellow gold features of the dial, all applique, as well as the bezel and case. You can see there's a lot more to this calendar. You have the day, the date, the month, the moon phase, the power reserve, all of this, and the dial is loomed. So the watch, perhaps not as sensational in its outward size and details, but God is in the details of this particular watch, both front and rear. And again, all of the manual finishing going into this movement adds substantially to the cost, adds 5 figures to the cost of this watch versus the Omega. So let's talk about the advantages of this watch versus the Omega. First and foremost, and I can't overlook this because I'm practical, this is a loomed watch. You can wear it all day long and all night long and still see what's on the dial side. As a watch, it works when the lights are out. It's also important to note that this watch is a very complete calendar. The annual calendar format of the Omega with the month and the date isn't intuitive for everyone. This is wonderful if you're dating correspondence, writing memos, emails. It gives you everything you need, plus a power reserve to indicate whether or not the watch is about to drop dead, and that is useful on a watch with a short power reserve of about 40 hours, and you will want to know that so you don't have to reset the calendar, as it uses individual pusher adjusters for all of the calendar indications. Also important, this watch is going to win the movement finish competition by a mile, though the Omega is imaginatively styled and the machine finishing is thoughtful and attractive. This is true hand finishing. A tremendous amount of work goes into this watch. These are 20-30 Swiss franc screws, and there are a lot of screws, bridges, plates in this movement. So if you love movements and you own a loop, this is the easy choice between the two. I'm also going to mention prestige. It's not for me. I think Omega is just fine. I'm not trying to show off or make a statement with my watch, but for many, it's going to be Patek Philippe, and it stands shoulder to shoulder with the other it brands of our moment, FP Journe, Rolex, and of course Richard Mille. But I would take this over any of the above. It is gorgeous, classical, chaste, and always in good taste. Not many prestige and status watches can be described thusly. Now, this is also an annual calendar from the folks who invented the type. It's hard to believe that before 1996, there were no annual calendars. You had simple calendars, which required adjustment 5 times per year, and you had perpetual calendars, which were scarce and expensive. They still are. The annual calendar was a Patek original, and as ever with an innovation, it's wonderful to hear from the original. Would you rather see Chuck Berry or a cover of Chuck Berry? I missed out on the opportunity to see the real thing, and I regret it. So if you want the annual calendar from the folks who invented it, Patek Philippe. I'll also mention that current models of this watch, this is an older model, but it's still in production and still available. Current models are available with the Spiromax silicone hairspring, not found here, and the Patek Philippe seal, which comes with an attestation of precision, no worse than -3 + 2 seconds per day. So that's available if you buy a newer model. However, you want to buy the older one because after the late 2000s, roughly, I want to say 2012 was the turnover year. They stopped making these bracelets with screws and they started using pin sleeves. I'll take screws, and white gold screws at that, for sizing my bracelet over pin sleeves any day of the week. Patek did it to save money. There's no other reason. So if you buy the new watch, you get the mechanical refinements, but you also get a cheaper and less impressive bracelet. Something to consider. More subtle, more tasteful, and I'll mention that compared to the Omega, especially the Omega in red gold, this doesn't have the new money strain for attention of the size and the color and the sheer bulk of metal found on the Ville Hour Vision Annual. I would also say this watch is aces for small wrists. If your wrist is 14.5 centimeters in circumference or smaller, this is the easy choice, and 3 millimeters thinner, it's more elegant and a better fit for a tight cuff. Now, the Omega, let's talk about it because it's a striking watch. Omega makes a lot of watches. Very few of them are annual calendars, so it has an inherent feeling of exotic rarity to it for an Omega. If you're an Omega guy, this could be the exotic in your collection. No need to spring for the central tourbillon. New, this watch costs $38,400 to the Patek Philippe's $63,960. Used, the Patek costs about $42,000 to $45,000 depending on the era and the accessories. I'll also mention this watch pre-owned costs $16,000 to $18,000, so whether new or pre-owned, this is the value proposition. Also going to mention tech. This watch has it all over the Patek Philippe, especially this example versus the older Patek in the test. This watch has an SI14 silicone hairspring, almost amagnetic. It has stop seconds. The Patek doesn't have that. It has the ability to set the calendar using only the crown. No need for pushers to mar the case or compromise the water resistance. It has a coaxial escapement that remains exotic even in the year 2019, invented by George Daniels, perfected in the 8500 series movements, and this is a variant of that, so it's tank tough and very precise with independent horology cool to it. A COSC certified Swiss chronometer. The older versions of the 5146, like the one in this test, come with no attestation of accuracy. This one, a chronometer certificate. Also worth mentioning, a 60-hour power reserve with twin mainspring barrels to maintain the amplitude of the balance even after 28 or 24 or 48 hours, I should say. And that is one of the keys. With a watch like this, especially with a short power reserve of 35 to 45 hours, amplitude drops tremendously and timekeeping suffers, especially given the power-intensive complication. Omega makes up for a lot of that, not just with a longer power reserve, but by using two mainspring barrels. So a longer power reserve and better timekeeping throughout. This is a timepiece that has 100-meter water resistance and is swimmable. The Patek Philippe with 30-meter water resistance, even when freshly serviced, should not be used for swimming. Also important to note, this watch, still available new, just like the Patek, but remember, this watch with a 5-year warranty versus a 2-year warranty for the high horology Patek. Also important, this watch has a sports watch movement architecture, which is to say it's not as finely finished, but with features like thick construction, a full balance bridge, and a free-sprung index. It is designed to take a licking and keep on ticking. Plus, far more water resistant. This is the sports watch inside and out. I'll also mention that you get more gold for less money. I put them both on the scale. This one weighs about 1.5 ounces more. So again, purely in terms of the precious metal, you're getting more of it with Omega for your money. Also important, this watch available in stainless steel, and I happen to have the body double right here. The easy choice of the 3 watches shown. But if we're choosing full gold annual calendars, remember, you can still love this watch, the look, the capabilities, the technology, and get it in a more universal stainless steel case. The Patek, no such option. I'm also going to give this watch dial design. It's simply more interesting than what you get with the Patek Philippe. The Patek Philippe is thoughtfully finished and handsome, but it looks a little bit anodyne and generic, though it is balanced. I think there's more adventure and ambition fully realized in this Omega dial. And of course, I saw the first Hour Vision back in Penn Station in 2007 when I was working in law, and I thought, you know something? That is amazing. I never felt that way looking at a Patek Philippe annual calendar not called the 5235G. Finally, important to mention that this movement, though not more finely finished, is more interesting in its design with the spiral Côte de Genève in arabesque, the blackened screws, the solid gold movement components. Imagine getting that in Omega. You don't have to go for an FP Journe to get gold movement components. Here they are. It's a dramatic looking thing inside and out. So which one do I choose? Frankly, between the two, these are not my style of watch. They are very Miami, and although I am homesick for my home away from home, the home of the old Watch You Want company, nevertheless, I was never of a Miami Beach sensibility, retaining my New York prejudice for white metals and discreet styles all the way, but the Omega has it all over the Patek for me. It's simply a more interesting watch, technically more appealing, stylistically more ambitious and successful in its ambition, a better value all around, and 100 meters water resistant, a watch you can wear all the time. Again, this is my ringer and my ultimate choice, but between the two, give me the Omega. You guys, let me know, which of these two for annual calendar day would you prefer on your wrist, Omega or Patek Philippe?